like to call to order the Sparks City Council meeting of December 9th, 2013, with a roll call, please.
Mayor Martini?
Here.
Council members Ratty? Absent. Lawson?
Here.
Smith?
Here.
Kerrigan?
Here.
Schmidt? Absent. City Attorney Adams?
Here.
And City Manager Carey.
Here.
We have a quorum. Thank you.
Okay, next we have invocation speaker, Pastor Kyle Bateson from the Livingstone Church. Would you please all stand? Is he here? Okay, I don't see him, so instead of the prayer today, we'll just have maybe a moment of silence for all those that stand in harm's way for us on a daily basis. Thank you. Please remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. Mr. Smith, would you lead us?
If you'll join me, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, next we have comments from the public. I have no cards to speak. Dick, you want to speak on the? Dick, you want to speak at the time of the agenda item itself? Okay. Anyone else under public comment? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to the approval of the agenda. Anybody want to take anything out of order? If not, looking for a motion. Mr. Smith.
Move to approve.
Do you have a second? Mr. Lawson.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Smith, seconded by Mr. Lawson to approve the agenda as outlined by staff. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please vote. Passed unanimously with those present. Next is a recommendation to approve minutes of the City Council meeting for November 25th, 2013, and the Sparks Workshop of November 18th, 2013. Any corrections, additions, or deletions? If not, looking for a motion. Mr. Lawson.
Move to approve.
Mr. Smith.
Second.
Moved by Councilman Lawson, seconded by Councilman Smith to approve the minutes as outlined by staff. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please vote. Passes unanimously. Announcements, we have none. Next is consent items. Anybody want to pull the consent item we have, reports and claims and bills? Not looking for a motion. Mr. Lawson.
Move to approve.
Do you have a second? Mr. Smith.
Second.
Moved by Councilman Smith, seconded by Councilman Lawson to approve the consent item as outlined by staff. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please vote. Passes unanimously. Move on to general business. Consideration and possible approval of an additional initial 18-month contract with a possibility of 4 one-year extensions to Waste Management, Inc. for the disposal of biosolids at the Lockwood Regional Landfill from the Truckee Meadows Water Reclamation Facility. Mr. Drinkwater, welcome.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, thank you. Michael Drinkwater, excuse me, treatment plant manager. Before you today, we have for your consideration a request to enter into a contract with Waste Management for the continuation of the disposal of our biosolids from the treatment plant at the landfill. You'll note that there has been a modest price increase that represents increasing costs on their behalf, as well as a desire for them to close the landfill on Saturday. You'll note that the Saturday rate is substantially higher than the weekday rate. Unfortunately, we did investigate, and there are no alternatives available to us. The only other reasonable option would be the Carson City landfill, and their rate was more than twice the Saturday rate you see before you. So we are under no obligation to any particular volume, so we are taking steps at the plant to try to minimize our Saturday disposal, but nonetheless, that is something we must continue to do for the foreseeable future. So I ask for your consideration of this, and would happily answer any questions.
Questions for Mr. Drinkwater? Okay, seeing none, looking for a motion. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry, Ron.
Mike, the weekend disposal, would you take that out in tanker trucks? Is that what you do?
Of their 37-yard side dumps.
So do we have to take it out on the weekend, or?
Yes, sir. We don't have the capacity to store it over the 48-hour weekend period at the plant. So we we dump on Saturday, we can bridge Sunday, because Waste Management will not open the landfill on Sunday.
Okay.
So that's not an option for us. We must be able to, but we can't store 48 hours worth.
Okay. Thank you.
Questions? Looking for a motion. Mr. Smith,
Move to approve and authorize the mayor to sign a contract with Waste Management Incorporated for disposal of biosolids from Tum Wharf at the Lockwood Regional Landfill.
Mr. Lawson.
Second.
Moved by Councilman Smith, seconded by Councilman Lawson to approve 6.1. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please vote. Passes unanimously. Thanks, Mike. Next is 6.2, discussion and possible action by the City Council to provide direction to city staff regarding the master plan amendment approved on September 24th, 2013 by Washoe County Board of County Commissioners. Mr. Rundle, let's get ready to rundle.
Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor, Sparks City Council. In September, the Washoe County Board of County Commissioners approved a master plan amendment which would could allow for a proposed 360-unit multifamily development out near the intersection of Calle de la Plata and Pyramid. This here we're trying to point on, does the pin show up there? This is the intersection of Eagle Canyon, La Posada, and Pyramid Highway where the city of Sparks city limits. And moving out here is Calle de la Plata and the Pyramid Highway. And this is approximately where the master plan amendment was proposed for. And this is the map this is a map that I made. This is a map that came out of Washoe County staff's staff report. So it is similar to the one I just showed you. It's just reflecting master plan land use colors and land use designations. This item, because it's a master plan amendment, would require approval through the Regional Planning Department or Regional Planning Commission. Sparks Planning Commissioners will consider the item as they represent City of Sparks on the Regional Planning Commission, and potentially the City of Sparks City Council and Mayor would consider the item at a governing board meeting. Mayor Martini requested staff bring this item forward so the City Council could provide staff with direction, just as well as the council could discuss amongst themselves so that the regional planning governing board members would understand the sentiment of the City Council if it is considered at the governing board level. I'll try and give a quick background on this item. In a vote of 4-1, the Board of County Commissioners overturned Washoe County Planning Commission and staff's recommendation to deny the master plan amendment. The master plan amendment was to redesignate the land that's highlighted on this map from industrial, commercial, and open space to suburban residential, which would allow 9 dwelling units per acre and allow up to 360 units on the site, essentially multifamily. So I don't talk too much like a planner. But county staff's original staff report cited numerous reasons for denial. I'm just going to hit a couple of the high points. This would, in county staff's words, they said this would be a drastic change for the character statement for the Spanish Springs area and a significant departure from current and adopted policies. The proposal is incompatible with the adjacent land uses. There is insufficient study to identify the services and facilities needed to support this kind of density. The amendment does not promote the desired pattern for orderly physical growth in the county and does not guide development based on projected population growth with the least amount of natural impairment to resources and for the efficient use of services. Regional planning staff will be tasked with considering the merits of this proposal with the policies as identified in the Truckee Meadows Regional Plan. I do not know their recommendation at this point, but they have told Washoe County staff that the application is complete. And essentially that means that all of the required items to make a submittal to regional planning are in the packet. So it is anticipated to be heard at the January Regional Planning Commission meeting. I'm sure most of the council has heard that there is contention over this item. It's why the mayor asked for us to bring this forward to the city council. I'll ask, Mr. Mayor, would you like me to talk about the appeal processes at regional planning?
Please.
If the item goes to, when the item goes to regional planning, as it is expected to do, it would require a supermajority to approve the item. If it does not receive a supermajority of the Regional Planning Commission, which is a 9-member panel, it would be considered a denial or a technical denial. If it is found in nonconformance, Washoe County is the applicant on this item. Not the original applicant, but Washoe County. Washoe County would then have the ability to appeal the decision, and they would then have 45 days to submit to Regional Planning Commission the reasons why they feel that the Regional Planning Commission is wrong, essentially, why it is in conformance with the regional plan. The Regional Planning Commission would then reconsider the item at a second meeting for that item. If the Regional Planning Commission approves or again denies the application, it can then be appealed up to the governing board. Then it would be heard by, if it is then heard by the Regional Planning Governing Board, it requires a simple majority approval or a simple denial of the application. And essentially that would vet the appeal process. Of course, I suppose from then it could go on to district court, but we don't need, I can't speak much to that. And that concludes my presentation, Mr. Mayor.
Questions, Mr. Kerrigan?
Just one quick one. So when they overruled the planning commission, what do they use as their findings to do that? Meaning Washoe County?
It is my opinion, and I watched it on TV, and I've read the minutes that they did not use any findings to overturn the planning commission's.
So aren't you by law supposed to do that? I guess I'll throw that down the chat. Don't you have to to overrule a planning commission? Don't you have to have findings that says why you did it, or you can just go ahead and willy-nilly go, yeah?
You know what? I've always advised my client, you need to have findings and conclusions. You're just putting yourself in a very precarious and very weakened position if you don't.
Okay.
Councilman Kerrigan, to clarify, I mean, at the end of the hearing, they made a motion. I moved to approve adopting findings such and such through such and such. They did not say because. If that answer makes sense to you, and they didn't go into why they didn't justify the findings. They simply just said.
Yeah, but if it was a denial from planning commission, then the findings, they have to make new findings.
I agree.
Oh, okay. At least that's how we do it.
Well, yeah, and that's what I say. That's how City of Sparks would do it.
And then the other thing is, what are they planning? How are they planning on getting around the regional plan? Because that's too dense for the area, according to the regional plan that I remember working
the
on.
The regional plan that's approved right now is my opinion that this change does not promote the regional form and pattern of the regional plan.
Because it sure doesn't promote a rural lifestyle out there, does it? No. I think we heard about that a couple of years ago.
Yep. We did, but then where do people have to, dump all their old boats and trailers and everything else? So if you don't have that 10 acres of land, where are you going to dump all that crap?
Thanks.
Mr. Smith?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Jim, I was under the understanding that if they denied it and it went back to the county commission, they could just send it back to them, but they couldn't overrule them.
Yeah,
and they did send it back to them, and they denied it a second time. Is that right?
Well, this is a confusing part of a state statute, NRS, and the planning law. And the city of Sparks experienced it with, I think, the Lazy 8 discussions. But when the planning commission denies a master plan amendment, the state law says the planning commission has the purview of the planning commission, but your charter essentially says all decisions made by staff or the planning commission may be appealed to the governing body, which in the county's case was the Board of County Commissioners. Now, on a master plan amendment, it does stay in the state statute before you can overturn planning commission, you are to remand the application back for a report. The way this officially happened was they voted on it to approve it, and the district attorney ultimately said, I really wish you wouldn't do that, and remand it back to the planning commission. So it did go back to the planning commission for a report. Now, they don't vote on it again at the planning commission. The planning commissioners essentially, on the record, in a public meeting, voice why they voted the way they did. Now, in this particular instance, each planning commissioner explained why they voted no or why they voted yes, why they think it's good or why they think it's bad. At the time, at the original time, there were only 6 planning commissioners that were on the board. One vacant seat because Commissioner Hartung had won the election to become a county commissioner, and his seat had not been replaced on the planning commission, so there were only 6 voting members. And it failed because it was a split at 3-3, 3 for it and 3 against it. Now, when it went back for the report, the new planning commissioner said, if I were a commissioner at the time, I would have voted no on the item. So you can assume it would have failed 4-3. But they did not re-vote on the item. They just gave their opinion on why they voted as they did previously, and then the new commissioner explained what he would have done based on the staff report. After that, it went back to the Board of County Commissioners, where they again voted on it to approve the master plan.
Okay, so actually the only vote that counted was their second vote, not the first vote.
Yes, the second vote of the Board of County Commissioners. I think so.
Okay.
I'll talk to Mr. Lawson, then I want to say one word real quick. You were at the meeting. There were a lot of people there from the district that this was going to be in Hartung's district, that were opposed to this. Is that correct? Over 100?
I watched it on TV.
Okay.
I did not attend it intentionally. We didn't want Sparks to be there and be called to the dais at the time. But there were numerous citizens coming to voice their opinion.
Yeah, and I think
I believe the chamber was very full.
Yeah, it was well over 100 people. And Commissioner Hartung voted against this. He didn't want it in his district, but 4 others that are not in this district, which cannot be impacted by any of the voters in Mr. Hartung's district, voted for it.
That's correct.
So this, to me, is a classic example of somebody in a district not wanting something and 4 others in the other districts not being impacted by those people, or them voting on them going to the commission. It's a classic example to me of why we don't want ward-only voting. Mr. Lawson.
Jim, can you tell us what are some of the direct impacts that we would have if this project was to go through for the city of Sparks?
Well, in my opinion, the biggest concern is the inconsistency with the proposed regional plan, or the adopted regional plan, and how we're all supposed to be planning for regional form and pattern. We've got 3 jurisdictions and then multiple other jurisdictions, including RTC, who are all supposed to be following one plan. And you know, the cities are working on trying to promote your multifamily development in the cores of the 2 cities, and not on the fringes of the cities. RTC has I don't know, the year is at the 2035 plan, RTP. They have not identified that they would be serving multifamily on the Pyramid Highway corridor, or all the way out to Calle de la Plata, but more so along other corridors. And so you begin to impact the city of Sparks, in my opinion, on traffic. We already are to be in a long-range planning outlook, is city of Sparks provides sewer to the unincorporated county within the TMSA. If you begin to eat up the capacity that we've allocated to the county, at some point in the unincorporated area, they will have vacant land and used up all of their sewer capacity because they got denser than what they originally planned. So they have a master plan that they adopted, and Sparks agreed to allocate them a certain amount of capacity in our line that they could eat up, and then, I mean, that's a problem for the county, and you asked what problems are there to the city of Sparks, but
Well, I see that as a problem. Sewer capacity is a big worry,
yes.
not to mention the traffic. So, and any other besides sewer and traffic?
You know what, and just an opinion that could be argued, but again, going back to the regional forming pattern, we're trying to identify our downtown, we're trying to identify our certain corridors for higher denser development. It is a challenge to do, as you all know, on the redevelopment agency. It's a challenge to do, and it can be easier to do with greenfield development. And so this can undermine what the cities are trying to work on, or the region, which we've all agreed to, the regional plan of trying to densify our urban cores.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, what are you looking for here, Jim? Direction from the council? What's the council? You want a motion on or you just want direction? What would you rather have?
Well, I think, again, an opinion of mine is that the council would let staff know if there's anything that we should voice at any hearings, or whether or not, secondarily, the goal, I think your goal with this, Mr. Mayor, was to have it heard at the council, so the council, Councilman Smith, Councilman Ratty, can let the other three know what their sentiment is on if it comes to the governing board level. There may be nothing that you would need to ask of staff, but or also to direct our regional planning commissioners.
Okay.
If you have any direction to give.
Mr. Smith.
Well, you know, from my point of view, I think that we should support Commissioner Hartung and the Planning Commission. It went back to them twice, so I would say that I would not support overriding the Planning Commission like the County Commission do. And I don't know if that's a motion or what you need from us.
Let's see what everybody else says.
Okay.
Mr. Lawson.
Well, I'm going to agree with that, and I think for the reasons you cited, the traffic, the sewer, and it's against the law. So, pretty easy to me.
Mr. Kerrigan.
Yeah, my only direction to staff would be, tell me, as someone that sits on a regional planning government board, how this fits into the regional plan. I mean, that would be my question to whoever is looking at it. Say, tell me how you can fit this into the regional plan as it stands right now. Because they're going to have to make the findings.
Yeah.
If they make the findings, there's not much we can say then. But I don't think they can make the findings. So my only question would be, show us how you meet the findings in the regional plan.
Ms. Ratty.
I think there's a certain level of irony that this is the first thing that's coming forward after we all gathered for a smart growth workshop a short few weeks ago.
Yeah.
I don't think that this project is an example of following policies and procedures that are trying to implement smart growth. So I would agree with all my fellow council members.
Yeah, I think we should oppose this development. It's not the right place for this development, and we've been trying to get developments within the city, not only us, but Reno. These kind of developments should belong within the city limits, not out in the county, out in the hitherlands. So, do you want a motion then, Jim, for us to oppose it, or is direction good enough?
May I ask a question?
Sure.
Isn't it true that our planning commission hasn't had the opportunity to hear it yet?
That's correct. The City of Sparks Planning Commissioners have not heard it in an official capacity.
So it seems to me, since this is in their realm first, that us taking an action feels.
It's not in our.
They're going to be.
The planning
They will
commission won't hear it.
only.
Just the
But
three people
their
that
three
go-
people
yeah.
will have the opportunity
Yeah, the
to
three
hear
that
it
are sitting on the
before.
regional
Yeah,
plan.
well, I think we should be giving them direction. They're our planning commissioners.
I agree, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah. Neil?
I think, for the record, before I jump in, Neil Cruz, Deputy City Manager for Community Services. I think the question you just posed to Jim on did we need a motion, I think you've just answered for yourselves in what I see as an idea to give our regional planning commissioners some direction on how to vote at their meeting. So I think that answers the question that you posed for us.
Should have a motion. Okay, you want to make a motion, Mike? Mike
Well,
Kerrigan.
you know, the motion, if I made a motion, would be to oppose the, unless they can make the findings that would conform with the regional plan.
Understood.
Do you have a second, Mr. Lawson? Second. I have a motion by Mr. Kerrigan, seconded by Mr. Lawson. Everyone understand the motion?
Yeah, can I just,
Sure, go ahead.
apologize for my confusion here. What I'm trying to say is that the Sparks Planning Commissioners and those who have the privilege of sitting on the regional body are individuals who have the ability to come to their own conclusion and are required to come to their own conclusion. So we don't have the authority to direct them to vote in a certain way. We can tell them, this is what our thinking is, we can tell them this is what we would prefer, but I don't think we can say, vote this way. That's all I'm trying to say, that the state law sees two independent bodies who have independent processes.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think we just want to let them know where we stand so they get a feeling for what the council's stance is on this.
So what was the motion?
I would think you just change it to we don't support the.
As I understand it, that the city council does not support
Right.
the proposal unless they can make the findings.
Yeah, that's,
Yeah,
And-
as opposed to directing them to
And
do
you're
so.
not,
that's what I said.
in my opinion, that we can share that motion, assuming that it would be approved with the Sparks Planning Commission. This is how the council voted. You're not directing
Right.
our planning commissioners, but sharing the sentiment of the city council.
I just want to not complicate this by doing something that we're not allowed to do.
Mr. Adams?
Yeah, I think it's implicit in the law that the city council would always support something that would ordinarily follow the master plan. There's something that's bothering me about the city council making a formal motion to oppose a particular development here, simply because something may happen down the road where the city council is asked to participate in something, and your vote could be construed as being, predestined or predecided or prejudicial, and I don't know if you necessarily need to go here. I'm just acting out of an abundance of caution. I think
No,
it
that's
goes-
fine. I'll withdraw my motion then.
So you're saying we just need to
You provided
direct our staff members as to that as a council, we don't support this?
Well, as a council, that you've got some
Unless-
serious concerns about the fact that this does not comply with the master plan.
Okay.
Councilwoman Ratty, I think, made an excellent point in that it does not comport with a prior decision or a prior meeting of a multidisciplinary body, multi-governmental body.
Okay.
And that for all those reasons, you would urge the staff to follow that direction.
Okay. You guys okay with that, Jim?
Yes, we are.
Okay. So you withdrew the motion?
I did.
Okay. So you know what direction we're going. Thanks, gentlemen. Appreciate it. Thanks, Jim, for your hard work. I appreciate that. 6.3, consideration and approval of Resolution 3250 in support for a private developer's acquisition and rehabilitation of Marvin Gardens Apartments located at 550.
Marina's.
Marvin Gardens.
That's okay. That's monopoly.
That's Monopoly, isn't it? Marvin Gardens?
I think it's.
Let me see, is Park Place in here too? I want to make sure.
That's the next item.
Oh, do not pass go, do not collect $200. Let me see, where was I? And rehabilitation of the Marina Gardens Apartments located at 550 Howard Drive in Sparks, Nevada. Go ahead, Armando.
Thank you, Mayor Martina, members of City Council, Armando Ornelas, City Planner. This is a request from a company by the name of the Pacific Rim Development Company for a resolution of support for an application that they are submitting to the State of Nevada Housing Division for tax-exempt bond financing, and with that goes a 4% low-income housing tax credit. And they wish to use this financing to acquire the Marina Gardens Apartments located at 550 Howard Drive.
You know, whoever put the verbiage on there, thank you so much. Because north is right and everything else is upside down, but that's okay.
I had it in there.
I always like north being at the top like you have it, except that now the names are upside down, so. But that's all right. I'll just turn my head, I guess.
North is
Whatever works.
as it should be, right? And that's Prater. And so to the south of that is this property, and this is the intersection of Prater and Howard. To the west, this direction, is the Silver State Plaza Shopping Center, and the property sits here. And it's a 1973 apartment complex consisting of 200 apartments in a total of 31 buildings. And basically what Pacific Rim is proposing to do is to use this financing to acquire the property and invest approximately $23,500 in hard costs per apartment to modernize the property. And so they're looking at new appliances, both interior and exterior improvements, including things like new appliances, flooring, fixtures, et cetera, but also new windows and insulation and other general improvements to the property to, update what is essentially a 40-year-old property. So if the tax-exempt bond financing would be done by the state, the city would have no role in that. The state would be responsible for doing all the underwriting. Because this project would propose to use low-income housing tax credits, the tax credit investor is going to do their own due diligence. They only get the credits if the property is rehabilitated and rented to qualified tenants. The applicant is not proposing to use federal home funds, and therefore there would not be a property tax exemption, so the property would stay on the property tax rolls. And so from staff's perspective, the property would be significantly improved, and there would also be a new commitment for these apartments to be maintained as, or to be rededicated as affordable housing in what is actually the most robust of the apartment submarkets in the Truckee Meadows, according to Johnson Perkins. So with that, we're asking council to approve the resolution of approval in support of the project so that they can submit it to the Nevada Housing Division with their application.
Mr. Smith?
Armando, the federal home funds, to give them a property tax exemption, should we put that in the motion so they can't use it in the future? Because what if they change their mind?
Well, it's in the resolution.
Okay.
And in fact, I think the resolution states that if they were to have to make a new application to the state, if they didn't proceed, this in the next couple of months, that they would need to come back essentially for a new resolution if they wanted to seek a new one. And so we would have an opportunity to revisit that issue if that were to change.
So if they were to apply for the federal home funds and they were approved, would that come before us again?
No, that goes through the home consortium process, and ultimately it's the Regional Planning Governing Board that approves those projects.
Uh-huh.
But they can't apply this year, and in order to stay on the timetable that they're proposing, they wouldn't be able to do that. If they wanted to apply for home funds, they'd have to do it in the 2014 round, and we'd be looking at a new set of applications.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Kerrigan?
I just wanted to get on the record. I don't think it's very clear what we're talking. It's just as a letter of support, so they could possibly help them get the financing they need from the state, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
We, every year in August, George Graham comes before you and asks you to allocate the city's bond cap. And, the last few years we've been having to go back to the housing division to support their single-family first-time homebuyer program. That's already done, and so normally an applicant for a project like this would come to the local jurisdiction and ask for our bond cap. Because they missed that window and they still want to apply in the current year, the state is asking them to get a resolution of support from us to demonstrate that the city is in support of the project.
Yeah. Thanks.
Mr. Lawson?
On the resolution, it says that once they complete this, 80% of the current tenants will continue to qualify to live at the Marina Garden Apartment. What happens to the other 20%? Are they going to relocate them?
They would have to relocate them.
Is that part of the law, that they have to relocate them?
In this case, because there are no home funds, they are not legally obligated to relocate them, but I can...
That's the disturbing part of this thing for me, is you're going to just kick 20% of your residents out on the street.
Well, and I think the applicant is here, as well as their consultants, and so I would suggest that perhaps you ask them that question.
Okay. Someone here from Pacific Rim? Let's come down, sir, and give your name for the record, please.
Rex Massey, representing Pacific Rim Development. The process that we undertake to acquire and rehab the apartment units take an 18-month time period approximately. So during that period, you're going to see normal attrition. People are going to move out. And once we start with the rehabilitation of the buildings, folks that come in will be income qualified. So over a normal course of sort of attrition and turnover, a lot of the over-income people will probably move out. And so we're looking at a limited number of folks that may be at the end of that 18 months still there and would require relocation assistance. And we are committed to giving them that assistance.
Does it say anywhere in writing that you're committed to it?
If you would like us to do that, we will.
It would just make me feel better.
Sure.
I would appreciate that.
Okay.
It's on the record.
I can put it on the record.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions? And then one request I would make is, can you change the name to Marvin Gardens so I don't screw that up again?
Do you want that on the record?
Yeah, right.
Yes, we can.
Just kidding. All right. Anybody like to make a motion? Go ahead, Ron.
Okay, I move to approve resolution number 3250 in support for the acquisition and rehabilitation of the Marina Gardens Apartments using tax-exempt bond financing and low-income housing tax credits.
Do you have a second? Mr. Lawson? Second. Moved by Councilman Smith, seconded by Councilman Lawson to approve 6.3. Any further discussion? Resolution number 3250. Seeing none, please vote. Passed unanimously. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time. 6.4, consideration and possible acceptance of the city's comprehensive annual financial report, CAFR, for fiscal year 2012-2013. Welcome, Jeff. And
Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor, council members. This is one of my two favorite council meetings. The first one being the budget, the final budget, when we get to say we're done with all that work and we can look forward to the new fiscal year. The second one being today, when we get to say goodbye to the old fiscal year and concentrate on moving forward. In your packet today, you've got a couple of things. The annual comprehensive annual financial report, otherwise known as the CAFR. You've also got a plan of corrective action that is addressed to the State Department of Taxation. And also in your packet is a presentation that's prepared by Kafori Armstrong that they can certainly address, that goes over their findings and audit procedures and such. And the reason I enjoy this so much is because it is a culmination of a lot of work. We probably spend 6 months on the budget and 6 months closing the fiscal year and going through the audit. So with me today is Debbie Kinder, of course, who's our accounting manager, and really rides and serves as our project manager for the external audit, closing the fiscal year, and she does a fantastic job. And also with us today are representatives from Kafori Armstrong. So at the end, I'll just highlight a couple of things that's in your packet today. But at the end, if you certainly want questions to any of us that are here, please feel free to do so. So with that, the CAFR has all kinds of information in there. So I'd like to start on page 1. No, I'm just kidding. I would not do that to you.
You're right.
We'll be here till I would
do that to us.
But there are, and I'd probably be all right doing that. It's a disease. We're a sick group. I'm telling you, they don't let us out very often. But there are a couple things that are highlighted that folks often want to see the results in the financial statements. And the first one, obviously, is how did it end up? And I'm happy to say that the auditors gave us an unqualified opinion, which basically means it's a clean audit opinion. It's the highest form of an audit opinion they can give, and basically states that all the financial statements and results fairly present in a material respect the position and transactions that happened that are reflected in the financial statements. So that's the best news. That's probably the first thing everyone wants to hear. The second thing after that is compliance and how we fared with compliance. And there's two real sections that are in the CAFR that talk about compliance. The first being the auditor's findings when they look at our internal controls. And that you can find starting on page 154. So there's a lot of things in this CAFR, and it's arranged according to a standardized set as GASB outlined. So why it's on page 154, it just is. So it's kind of buried back there. But certainly that's their report on internal controls. The second part, talking about compliance, can be found in note 2B, which is on page 32 and 33 of the CAFR, which talks about any apparent or potential violations of statutes, either NRS or the NAC. And so CAFORI puts those into their report, and we can certainly talk about those today, but that's where you can find that information. The plan of corrective, the letter of plan of corrective action that we've included in your packet is in response to that note 2B that's always in there for our apparent violations. And I say apparent violations because honestly the auditors look at it from an external perspective, but it's up to the State Department of Taxation if they want to pursue anything. And honestly the things that are in there are minor. You know, we had a really good audit this year, so they're minor in nature. But what we'll do is the Department of Taxation wanted us to present that letter to the council, and then they want council to approve that letter, and then we can just work with taxation if there's any issues. But honestly, I don't think there will be. There's nothing in there that's of a major consequence. So with that, those are my concluding remarks. If you had any questions, again, either for myself or Debbie or representatives from CAFORI Armstrong. Again, in your packet is a presentation that they prepared, and if you so desire, they can come up and walk you through that, but it's kind of up to you.
Questions for anyone, staff, auditors? Okay, looking for a motion. Mr. Addy.
I move to accept the comprehensive annual financial report and approve the plan of corrective action for fiscal year 2012-13 as presented, and authorize the financial services director to distribute to any interested parties as necessary.
Mr. Smith.
Second.
Moved by Councilwoman Ratty, seconded by Councilman Smith to approve agenda item 6.4. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please vote. Passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Good.
Big thank you to everybody for all their hard
Yeah.
work, including the auditors. We appreciate the time.
Thanks, Corey Armstrong. We appreciate it. Moving on to 6.5, consideration and possible approval of an amended interlocal agreement with the City of Reno for 2013 sewer rehabilitation phase 2 for an amount not to exceed $546,512. Mr. Hummel.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Andy Hummel, Utility Manager, Sparks Community Services Division. This item before you is an amendment to the interlocal previously approved by City Council with City of Reno for rehabilitation of our joint interceptor, serves both Reno and Sparks. Original interlocal amount was $446,000 and change. That was based on engineer's estimate prior to the project being bid. There were three main things that caused our share of that to increase. One of them was the bid price for one specific size of pipe, 60-inch, was significantly higher than anticipated, almost 25% higher, about $110 a foot. And of that, we share just under 3,000 feet, so that's a pretty significant chunk there. We also added a short amount, about 60 feet of that 60-inch pipe coming into Telmorph. We had a last run of it that when this project was originally conceived and bid was not going to be possible to rehabilitate at that time. During the process, we had the small emergency at the plant where we had to bypass flows. That opened that piece up to being able to rehab, so it made sense to add that in. Third one, the siphon line that runs beneath the Truckee River. There's some smaller pipelines in that was impossible to see what was occurring with them without getting the flows bypassed through there. The original anticipation was they were drain lines that were not needed. Let's go ahead and just cap them once those were dried up. Once it became apparent that what those really served and the condition, it was decided let's rehab them, keep them in service. If we do ever need to flush something through there, we get a plug in one of the bigger lines, we're going to need them. So that added another $75,000, of which all those costs were on the hook for 32% of that per the 1980 Tumwharf service agreement between Reno and Sparks. So with that, total cost to the city to date is about $518,000 and change. We're asking for a little more than that, increasing to $546,000, $512,000. There's some final inspection costs, things like that, that haven't been determined yet, so didn't want to have to come see you twice.
Questions? No questions for staff? Okay. Ms. Ratty.
Agreement with the City of Reno for the 2013 sewer rehabilitation Phase 2 for the amount not to exceed $546,512.
Mr. Lawson.
Second.
Moved by Councilwoman Ratty, seconded by Councilman Lawson to approve agenda 6.5 as outlined by staff. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please vote. Passed unanimously. Thanks, Eddie. You up next, too?
Yep.
6.6, consideration and possible award of the North Truckee Drain Realignment Phase 1 project, bid number 1314-007. Go ahead.
Yes, once again, Andy Hummel, Utility Manager, City of Sparks. This item before you is consideration of award Phase 1 of the North Truckee Drain project. Consists of approximately 1,600 feet of double 10 by 14 reinforced concrete box. So we're going to take up about 30 feet of room through Gregg Street and then down Larkin Circle with this first phase. Total project overall, once completed, all phases, is just under 5,000 feet of the 10 by 14 box and then another 900 feet or so of smaller box to tie everything together. As far as this phase itself, we advertised on October 23rd. Bids were received and opened November 22nd. We did have 2 addendums with that. We received 3 bids, ranged from 9.1 to 10.7 million. Q&D was the lowest responsive bidder at $9,165,000 and change. We had no anomalies in any of the bids received and recommended to award to Q&D.
For the record, what was the engineer's estimate on this?
The engineer's estimate on this was $16.1 million.
Good, so we're coming in
some money
considerably
left.
under. Yeah, great. Questions, Mr. Lawson?
So now we have this extra money. You're going to build out some more of the North Truckee Drain?
We are currently looking at our options there to take care of that. I would like to note previously we brought forth an item to get $4.75 million from the flood project. We will with this first phase. That was tied to box construction alone. We are above that amount, so we will be able to take full advantage of that money.
Wonderful.
And then very quickly, I have a letter here from Dick Mills from Pick and Pull. Dear Mayor and City Council, on behalf of Pick and Pull Sparks Auto Wrecking, K&D Properties, and Real Prop, we would like to support the building of the North Truckee Drain project. The Sparks Industrial Park was flooded in '97 flood due to North Truckee Drain backing up and pushing its floodwaters in Spanish Springs Park via Cleppy Lane. Along with all the other benefits for the entire city of Sparks, this project will alleviate that possibility along with lowering the flood surface elevation in our area of the river in future flood events. The Sparks City staff has worked tirelessly for the past 10-12 years involving the citizens of Sparks as you proceed. I'd like to thank a couple of your past city employees, Joanne Meacham and Sean Gooch, for their hard work. Both Neil Kreutz and John Martini have been a driving force in keeping this project on track from its inception. Andy Hummel deserves special recognition for taking over the daily responsibility of pushing this project forward. I would be remiss if not thanking the past and present council and Mayor Martini for keeping his project in the forefront for all these years. I'm sure I've missed a lot of Sparks staff that should be recognized. I can thank each of you. There is still the construction to be done and will involve many more hours of work. Getting the financing and the contract for construction is a major step forward for this project. Signed Dick Mills. So, okay, any other questions? And we'll put that on the record. Mr. Mr. Smith?
Just one question. I thought, I'm thinking, I know I have a bad memory, but the section we've done already on this side of the freeway, I thought that was 3 culverts wide. It was only 2?
The piece underneath the Sparks Boulevard ramp,
Yeah.
yeah, that was too wide there
Too
as
wide,
well.
so we're gonna,
Yeah.
it stays too wide all the way to the river.
Yeah, and that's hydraulically, it's not directly connected to this piece either. That just took more advantage of the drainage that was there and underneath I-80. Originally, we were looking at having to add like 6 or 8 large diameter pipes beneath I-80. By lowering that culvert, we were able to push more water that way and not have to go.
And I know we did
directly
it because they redid that exit.
Exactly.
So that was timely. So.
Any other questions? Looking for a motion. Mr. Smith?
I move to award the North Truckee Drain Realignment Phase 1 project bid number 13-14007, PWP WA 2014-0111 or 011 to Q&D Construction. Man, that's a lot of numbers. Incorporated in the amount of $9,165,013.
Mr. Lawson? Moved by Councilman Smith, second by Councilman Lawson to approve the agenda item 6.6, awarding the contract Q&D for the North Truckee Drain. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please vote. Passed unanimously. Thanks, Andy.
Thank you.
6.7, consideration and possible approval of a recommendation to refund building permit fees to Maverick for issued permits A1300315 and A1301041 in the amount of $120,343.10. Mr. Martini.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. John Martini, Community Services Department. I'm before you today. Unfortunately, Maverick has decided not to construct the proposed gas and convenience store at the corner of Pyramid Highway and Highland Ranch Parkway where Sparks Boulevard terminates. We were informed several weeks ago that they're not going to construct it. As such, they've asked for a refund of their building inspection fees, sewer connection fees, and RTC fees. I've outlined it in the staff report. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Questions for John?
What if we don't want to give them back their money?
That's an interesting issue. I'm here asking for it back. By legally, we have to give it back. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Go to court. Mr. Lawson.
I'm ready to make a motion.
Go ahead.
Move to recommend approval of the refund to Maverick in the amount of $120,343.10.
Do we have a second? Ms. Ratty.
Second.
Carried.
Moved by Councilman Lawson, seconded by Councilwoman Ratty to approve agenda item 6.7. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please vote. Passes unanimously. Next, we have a closed door session. No? Comments from the public? Anyone want to speak on or comments from the public? Comments from the city manager or city council, Mr. Lawson.
Yes. Last Thursday, John Martini and I attended a meeting with all 3 entities, and we are working on a program where we can defer impact fees until C of O. So we've kind of put together a tentative plan on what we want to see and how we're going to do this. This, I think, for me and for a lot of the builders that were there, we're pretty impressed that all 3 entities were sitting down in the same room and we're actually on the same page and moving in the same direction. So I'm asking formally that John proceeds forward with how we can get to this point where we can defer our impact fees. And you're going to be taking it up at your various boards, especially RTC and Tumwa. They were at the meetings and they have no problem with deferring some of those. Obviously, hard cost numbers we want to keep. We still want to have that money paid up front. But some of those, like RTC and Tumwa and sewer, you're not really using them until you actually take occupancy of the dwelling. So I think, is that formal enough for you to move forward and kind of once again, I'm real proud to see the 3 entities sitting down at the table to working in a common direction. Pretty amazing.
Mr. Kerrigan?
Do we want to bring that back to the city council, get approval first, before we take it out?
Yeah, that's probably the second part. I should have said that we want to bring this back for the second meeting in January for the entire council to hear.
Yeah.
Okay.
It might be better at that time to give a formal endorsement, because that way you could agendize it. And, but that was an excellent presentation.
I was thinking about that open meeting law, over here.
Never applies to you anyway, does it? You don't have a
Obviously,
problem.
it never
You don't have a
applies.
problem with it. Anybody else? Questions? Comments? I'd just like to say thank you to everybody. This is going to be our last meeting for the year, so Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and I want to say thank you to all those people out there that came to the parade last Saturday. It was a wonderful parade as usual. The weather was horrible. It was cold and nasty, but when we got on the float and I got downtown and the rest of the council was there, and I was just shocked to see how many people actually came out to that Christmas Day parade. So I know there's a lot of people in Sparks and Reno and Washoe County that love that parade, because you have to love it to come out in that kind of weather. So thanks to everybody. Mr. Lawson?
Isn't that the official Christmas Day parade for the state of Nevada?
I believe Bernie Anderson got that passed some time ago. It's the official Christmas parade for the state
That's
of Nevada.
something to be
Yes.
proud of.
It is to be proud of. And obviously the people in Sparks and the county are proud of it, because they come out whether it's sunny or cold or snowing or whatever. So I was very appreciative. Ms. Ratty?
I did also want to just make one more announcement. We do have the final push of fundraising for the Sparks Middle School Compassion Fund is tomorrow evening from 5 to 7 at the Orozco Lounge at the Nugget. And we're just wanting to make sure that going into the holidays that those impacted directly by the shooting at Sparks Middle School have their needs taken care of. And so if anybody is in the Christmas giving spirit and would like to come down and make a donation, again, that's 5 to 7 at Orozco at the Nugget.
Please, come down and give a few bucks. Anyone else? Okay, seeing no further business, we're adjourned.
Okay, I'll call the order of the Sparks Redevelopment Agency meeting of December 9th, 2013, with a roll call, please.
Agency Chairman Smith.
Here.
Agency members Ratty.
Here.
Lawson.
Here.
Martini.
Here.
Kerrigan.
Here.
Schmidt. Absent. Agency Attorney Adams.
Here.
And Agency Manager Carey. Here. We have a quorum. Thank you.
Okay, at this time, I'll open up to the public. Would anybody in the audience like to speak at this time?
I am having a hard time getting the agenda up on my, it's showing this same server error that I was getting earlier in the day. Is everybody else getting it?
Let me check.
I'm on AT&T.
Must be operator error.
I got it.
Well.
Okay, we'll
Go
go
to the
back
city
to...
website agendas. Is that where you're at?
Got it. Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah.
City website
Yeah, no, I'm
agendas?
using a hot link, so.
That's where I got it.
And we'll go back to the audience. Anybody wishing to speak at this time? Seeing none, we bring it back to the agency. And are you ready to go there?
Yeah.
Ms.
With
Ratty?
some great assistance from the city attorney. And then
Okay, approval of the agenda. I would like to change one thing, because if you look at, it says recommendation to approve the minutes of, and then that goes down to number 5, as opposed to there, where it says approve the minutes for November 25th. I'd move that up in front of number 3. You understand what I'm saying?
No.
Yep. Second.
Okay. We have a motion?
Oh, I thought you made a motion.
No, I just...
Move to approve, Mr. Chair.
Okay. We have a motion from Mr. Martini and a second from Mr. Lawson. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Okay, number 3, recommendation to approve the minutes of. Number 5, consideration and possible approval of the minutes of the regular Sparks Redevelopment Agency meeting for November 25th, 2013. Any changes? Looking for a motion?
Move to approve, Mr. Chair.
second.
Okay, we have a motion from Mr. Martini, a second by Ms. Ratty. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Okay, number 3, report of claims and bills approved for payment and appropriation transfers for the period of November 7th, 2013 through November 20th, 2013. Looking for a motion?
Move to approve.
Second?
We have a motion by Ms. Ratty, second by Mr. Martini. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Number 4, is this Armando? Consideration and possible acceptance of an offer from Land Cap Investment Partners, LLC, to purchase the Sparks Redevelopment Agency's 10.2-acre parcel located on Marina Gateway Drive between East Parade Way and Lincoln Way. Armando.
Thank you, Chairman Smith. Members of the agency board, Armando Renaud, city planner. The purpose of this agenda item is for you to consider whether you want to accept the offer that was received in response to the agency's request for offers for the 10.2 acre parcel on Marina Gateway Drive. If you were to choose today to accept or even amend the offer, the next step would be for staff and LandCap, the would-be buyer, to negotiate a purchase and sale agreement for the agency board's consideration in January. And that's when we would do the public hearings that both the city council and the agency board has to do in order to dispose of property. So just some background. Back on September 23rd, I brought an item forth where the agency board directed staff to proceed with soliciting offers for the 10.2 acres. We did a number of things, including posting a for sale sign. We published notice in the Reno Gazette Journal twice, and we prepared and sent out a request for offers to anyone who asked for it, but certainly to those parties who had, in the recent past, expressed an interest in the property. We had a number of inquiries, but at the end of the day, we had one offer, and that came in prior to the November 13th deadline. The offer is from an entity. It's a single-purpose LLC, and the name of the entity is LandCap Investment Partners LLC. The firm's principals are Stephen Hinckley, Jeffrey Holbrook, and Bruce Degler. And then David Dahl and Doyle Barker are identified in the offer as associates with the firm. The terms of the offer are as follows. The proposed purchase price is $2.4 million. That compares to $2.25 million, which is the appraised value. They are asking for, once that purchase and sale agreement is approved, if it's approved, for a 30-day due diligence period. So, just assuming we for argument's purposes that you accepted that, or we approved a purchase and sale agreement in mid-January, that would run through mid-February. At that point in time, they would come in with an additional $50,000 at the end of the due diligence period if they wanted to continue. So they'd be up to $100,000 in deposits, which would be applicable to the purchase price. Then, following that, they've asked for 90 days to be able to submit a plan of development. In other words, a site plan, a land plan for the property. And in this case, it would be not just for the 10.2 acres, which is this property here, but they are also in contract to purchase the adjacent parcel to the south, which is this one, and that's a 9.7 acre parcel. So basically, they're looking at a development plan for the full 20 acres, and so they would have that 90 days to submit that plan, and then they're asking that if the agency not approve, if the city doesn't approve it within 9 months of submittal, that they have the right to terminate. And one of the clarifications that I wanted that I had a discussion with LandCap, and I wanted to clarify that in fact is a city function, not an agency function. It would be a plan that would be submitted for more than likely site plan review because it's in the TOD, and so it would be no discretionary approval per se, but it would go through the land use entitlement process. And because we are not contemplating in this case that there would be a development agreement between the agency and the buyer, that this would basically be the agency just selling the property, any approvals would fall to the city. If they get a land plan approved during that period of time, then we would go to close escrow, and they are proposing to close escrow within 60 days of receiving that approval. And they are proposing to come in with an additional $400,000 in cash in addition to the $100,000 in deposits at the close of escrow. So that'd be $500,000 of the proposed $2.4 million. They are then asking for the balance of the purchase price, the $1.9 million, to be carried by the agency for a period of up to 3 years at an interest rate of 6%, which they would pay monthly during that period of time. So that would equate to $342,000 over 3 years, or $9,500 a month, basically, if the agency agreed to carry the balance of the purchase price. They did submit, and I did include in what was submitted to the agency board, a preliminary conceptual site plan, and it shows a combination of detached single-family cluster homes and apartments totaling about 370 units on 18 acres. They're also proposing an acre of commercial uses, although that may or may not work on the site, depending on what happens with Marina Gateway Drive and access along there. So it could be that, we are looking at the end of the day at an all-residential project. So, up to this point, we followed all the steps in the process, and the next step was really for staff to clarify the terms of the offer. I had some questions that arose in my mind, certainly, upon reading the offer. So I had a teleconference call on November 22nd with Jeffrey Holbrook and Stephen Hinckley, and David Dahl participated. Basically, the purpose of that call was twofold. I wasn't negotiating the terms of the offer. I was simply trying to clarify the terms and then just alerting them to some of the things that we would want to address in the purchase and sale agreement if you choose to proceed with this offer. First of all, there was some inconsistent language in the offer about whether the deposit money, the $100,000, would be refundable or not. They confirmed that it would be non-refundable. Secondly, that in fact, approval of a development plan was not the agency's role, but the city's role. I wanted to make that clear. If the agency were to agree to carry that balance, really, at the end of the day, this is a single-purpose LLC. So really, the only security we would have if they were to choose to not, pay us the balance, to essentially default on the note, is the land. So really we would be looking to get the land back. And so towards that end, what I discussed with them was that it's in the agency's interest to make sure that the land is unencumbered, and that there's language in the purchase and sale agreement as well as in the other related documents, the note and the deed of trust, that allows us to regain title of the property as easily as possible. So we would want language in all of those documents to ease that. And that, if in the event, for example, that they wanted to start construction during that 3-year period, if they were ready to start construction, one of the things that potentially would encumber the land was if they were to start construction, but cease, and then, they've stopped paying on the note. There's partial improvements on the site, and you don't have to look any further than the parking garage to see that on the Marina Village property to note that that can become a challenge for the property owner who now has the property back. So they've agreed in principle that in these documents we would have provisions along the lines of, for example, if they want to go ahead and start construction, that they would have to pay off the note, so that, or at least partially if they're phasing it, so that whatever property were to return to us, if that were to occur, would be unencumbered. So it was more just setting the table for the negotiation of the purchase and sale agreement if you agree to proceed. And then just to clarify that after the close of escrow, LandCap would assume all of the maintenance and financial obligations, including the payment of property taxes and the SAD payments, which are about $60-something thousand a year. So with those clarifications and those recommendations, if you will, staff believes that the offer has merit. It's a fair price for the land. It would be a fair return on the proposed carry at 6%, and eventually would substantially advance the agency's redevelopment objectives for the Marina District. I know that we were looking to ideally have more cash up front sooner, so that we could avoid the city potentially having to make some of the agency's debt payments. This wouldn't necessarily do that, but that aside, it's a pretty fair offer. So. David Dahl is here representing LandCap, and if you'd like to hear from him, or if you have questions for either him or myself,
We'll move to questions. First of all, Mr. Lawson and then Mr. Martini.
So Armando, if their expansion of Marina Gateway occurs, does that affect the property at all?
Well, as I understand it currently, all of the expansion of Marina Gateway Drive will be done within the existing right-of-way, so there would not be any property required from the adjacent property owners. What it might affect is some of the access points for these parcels, particularly from here in terms of the spacing. So that might make certain types of commercial uses at this corner less viable, because you'd have maybe access that wouldn't be ideal from a commercial perspective.
So, and the second question is then, the development plan that they have, can that be approved the way it sits now, or does it require some hoops for us to jump through to make that happen?
What I did with the planning staff was we basically reviewed it quickly. It was sort of a big picture review, and we offered some comments to them. Potentially, it might make sense. The land use designation in the master plan through the TRD is mixed-use residential on here, which fits perfectly with what they're proposing to do there. When we approved that plan back several years ago, it was sort of at a conceptual level, and so it was actually, and that was before East Lincoln Way had been, the alignment had been set through the Legends project. And so this parcel here actually has a split designation. A part of it, the northern part is mixed-use residential, and the southern part is mixed-use commercial. It probably would make sense for all involved for that to be remaster planned as all one thing, probably mixed-use residential. And so I think based on our review, they're very close on the minimum density, and I think that in talking to Mr. Dahl, that they feel that they could get there pretty readily.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Martini.
Armando, so we're in the first position on the land?
Yes.
Okay. Now, what happens, what about liens, tax lien, let's say, a real estate property tax lien?
Well,
if they don't pay the property taxes,
yeah,
it's going to get lien sooner or later.
That would happen, and we would, to be frank, Mayor Martini, as I prepare this purchase and sale agreement, I will be consulting with both the city attorney's office and our outside legal counsel. So we will be looking to address all of those possibilities to protect the agency as best possible.
Maybe legally, if we can, if there does become a lien on the property for any certain reason, then the contract is null and void. I don't know if that's legal or not, but something you might look at when you're going through this process. That's just
so
question. Okay, thanks.
Mr. Kerrigan?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I think it's a fair deal. Okay, and when you first presented it to me, I thought it was pretty fair, and I still think it's fair. And I think just for the edification, everybody else sitting on this council, didn't we buy this land from David?
Yep.
Just thought I'd bring that up. So we're selling it back to the person we bought it from, at a profit, by the way. Just thought I'd bring that up.
Mr. Addy?
So I'm actually on the fence, and I think the reason that I'm on the fence is so I think I want to thank staff for the work that they put into it at the request of the agency to take a look if we could sell this. Our original goal was cash up front so that we could make some progress on not having to have the general fund support a redevelopment district, and so I don't know that we accomplish that goal here. I'm concerned that the appraised value was taken now and that we're going to have a pretty significant development across the street, perhaps, depending on what happens in the near future. And I'm unclear how that affects the appraised value, so I'm concerned that we're selling it right before it's going to go up in value, perhaps. And so those two factors for me lead me to think, what's the rush? I'm concerned that the applicant, and I, again, with all respect for the applicant, because he's done great work in our community, but really gets it in their hands, there's no incentive to move. So that land could sit there undeveloped for a number of years.
3 years.
Three.
And then it's paid off, and then it sits there longer.
Either pays it off or we take it back.
So I'm just with the pending activity in the area, I'm just not sure that this is the best deal for us at this time. If it had come in 100%, and we're going to buy it outright cash, it solves the problem for us. But because it doesn't come in that way, I'm still unsure what the reason, the compelling reason is for us to move forward.
Well, we decided as an agency to sell it, try to get the appraised value for it, and we got above the appraised value. I can't see putting it on the market and then pulling it back off because somebody offers us the money in a different contract. But there's one problem I have, and it says termination, that LandCap proposes being able to terminate the escrow if they fail to receive city approval of their plan. I think it should say that they should submit a conforming plan to what the zoning is, because if they wanted to get out of this deal, they could just submit a non-conforming plan, and then they're out of it. Mr. Kerrigan?
Yeah, I just wanted to throw a couple things in there to help Julie out. First of all, we bought this property, I think, at about $1.4 million, and we're making $1 million on it. I never once said that we were going to sell this property to pay off a bad deal that we made in redevelopment District 2. Mm-hmm. The object of this, when we bought it a long time ago, was to flip it and make some money on it. Okay, never in my wildest dreams did I think we were going to pay off something that we had to put in the general fund. Okay, mm-hmm. And I agree with you about it may go up, but I think it's a fair deal, and I say let's, I don't want to get greedy. $1 million, and that's a pretty good deal for the city of Sparks. I mean, we're not in the real estate business, but we were in this case, and I think making $1 million is $1 million. So I'm all for going ahead with this deal, because once again, in 3 years, if it falls through, we get the property back, we have it reappraised, and it may be worth more. So I just don't think you can lose money in the real estate business. So.
Any more questions, Chet?
Is the offer contingent upon the sale of the parcel depicted to the south?
No.
Okay. Some of the issues that I have today, this is agendized as an acceptance of an offer.
As a what? I'm sorry?
As the acceptance of an offer to purchase the property. And I think there's been some excellent points raised both by Mayor Martini and Councilman Smith. In other words, the null and void language that was suggested. And I think Councilman Kerrigan had some issues as well. The problem that I have is that when you make an offer, it has to be first of all, a firm offer. And Armando has pointed out that we've agreed to some of the things in principle, and those have not been submitted in the form of the offer to the City Council. Some of the other changes, the null and void changes, Councilman Smith, I tried to write down what it was that you had here that you'd suggested. So we are coming back with essentially changes to the offer, which now constitutes a rejection of the offer and a counteroffer.
Chet? And just for a second, we're going to direct them to negotiate.
Okay,
that's all we're doing.
I was looking at the agenda item says acceptance of an offer, and that's exactly what I was going to say. It doesn't sound like we're there to affirm concrete offer yet.
We're going to, with the motion, and if it passes, we're directing them to negotiate the contract, which we can add our changes into.
Yeah, and I was going to say that the way they have the recommended motion, I wasn't going to use that, because I think the first part of it is exactly what you're addressing. Mm-hmm. We're not accepting an offer. Right. But what I was going to say is that I was going to make a motion to direct staff to negotiate the purchase and sale agreement with LandCap, with the caveat that we put in what we've talked about here.
I think that's very appropriate, Mike.
Okay.
Second.
Okay,
I guess that's the motion. Huh?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Yeah, and I'll just, again, I am sitting very squarely on the fence, and so if there's some enthusiasm for the motion, I'm happy to come along.
Okay. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It passes unanimously. Thank you. Okay, comments. Comments from the public. Anybody in the audience wishing to speak at this time? Seeing none, we'll bring it back to the agency. Comments from the agency or Chief Administrative Officer? Seeing none, we are adjourned.
I just-